Hey guys, Rafi here from the Endgame Investor, and today I have one of my good friends, Crypto Rich, who I really do enjoy talking to, especially because we disagree on the crypto topic, on the Bitcoin topic, but in a very respectful way where we both know where the other is coming from, and we can have not just a civil discussion, but really a friendly discussion. And I appreciate his views, and he appreciates mine. And this is kind of rare in the sound money world. You have their camps and they kind of close off to one another, but we don't. And you can see, if you look at Rich's eyes, you can see he's a good man. I have this theory that you can tell somebody's mind from their eyes. Just contrasting to somebody's eyes like Neil Kashkari at the Fed, you can definitely see a difference. But it always lightens my heart to talk with Rich, with Rich, Crypto Rich, sorry, with Rich.
Well, Rafi, thank you so much for that. And this video is going out on both our channels.
Mhm.
Both I don't know if I'll put it on my YouTube channels, but definitely on my Odyssey channel. And I'd invite people to subscribe to both of us, ideally on Odyssey. That's my personal point of view, because I'd rather that grew, because we can talk freely. And I got to say, Rafi, I repost some of your videos, and some of the stuff you've done lately has just been spectacular. Absolutely spectacular, really great analysis. And then what you say about Bitcoin, where you and I disagree, because we did a video about this and I didn't I don't think in that video I brought you over to my side, to my way of thinking, right? But it's really okay. But one thing has happened since that video, maybe a couple of months ago or something, that it finally dawned on me after 11 years of, being interested in gold and silver, and it's finally dawned on me that gold is the ultimate form of money. And that's something that you've been saying for a while. And how come it's dawned on me about gold being the ultimate form of money is that everything is measured against gold. The dollar, pound, euros, even Bitcoin, and of course silver is all measured against gold. Gold is the ultimate form of money. Because if the gold price were to go up, say against the dollar, people will be rushing into gold. And this is why the custodian banks keep crashing it so much, in order to maintain the illusion that somehow the dollar, that worthless fiat, is more valuable than that shiny metal gold.
Yeah, I mean, everything ultimately is measured in gold. It could be that the ultimate form of money is silver, at least, in ancient Jewish law, in the Mishnah, there is a chapter on money and monetary policy, whereas you have a case of somebody exchanging silver for gold or gold for silver, and there are different points that there is a moment in a transaction in Mishnaic law where the transaction closes. And it's not when you hand over the money, it's when you get the commodity. So the Mishnah has to ask a question: what is considered the money and what is considered the commodity in a transaction between gold and silver? And the answer is the transaction ends when the gold is transferred, not when the silver is transferred, because until you transfer the commodity, anyone can go back on the deal. And so before there was a gold standard, there was a silver standard. And now the question is, why wouldn't silver be the ultimate money now? And I think the answer is because if you have a trustworthy gold substitute like a dollar, if it was 100% reserve backed by gold, then it would be more convenient to just transfer paper back and forth than to use silver, because silver is heavier. However, when the paper is not trustworthy and people cannot trust the gold substitute, they have to go back to silver for retail transactions because gold won't work for that. So the question is, what's the ultimate money, gold or silver? Not quite sure. I think it's silver.
Right.
But we might be in a different kind of world now where gold would be the ultimate money, but that's more of an academic question. If you have either one of them or both, you'll be fine in the end. I'm not worried about that.
And they're both tied. They're both tied and interchangeable. So, silver is poor man's gold and useful for small transactions.
Yeah, it's more liquid in the Mishnah's terms. That's why it's the money. At least back then it was, because people used silver and they didn't really use gold. It was too expensive. It was only for rich people. And that might even be the case now.
Very good. Very good. Okay. Now, you wanted to talk about the Federal Reserve, and I wanted to talk to you about renewable energy, and also we're going to touch upon Bitcoin and anything else that might come up, and also I think the state of Europe. You were
Yeah.
curious about that. So
Yeah.
where do you want to begin?
I wanted to start with Europe. I mean, you're in London, right?
I'm near London,
Near
yes.
London. So I'm seeing the inflation statistics or the price inflation statistics of 13%. And I'm seeing that real wages have really been brought down from records going back to 2001. What is the mood there like? Is it despair? Is it people think that do people think that the price increases are going to end, or are people trying to get in front of them now? What's going on, and what's the mentality like?
Wow. Okay. Well, I've picked up three different strands. So one of the things I want to mention, Rafi, and you said that me being a good person, I don't know if this qualifies, right? But I work as a child protection social worker, and I
Mhm.
work in with the most deprived demographic of all, rundown estates where households are too dysfunctional to be able to hold down a job or anything like that, right? They're just trying to do everything they can to keep their basic lives together. One of the things I've noticed an increase in poverty, and quite a dramatic increase in poverty, and that's measured by the numbers of, this is anecdotal, by the way, increase in homelessness. And near where I work, part-time as a social worker, there's a supermarket store, small supermarket, and I've been noticing for months and months and months and months and months how the shelves are getting emptier, and also how supermarkets are removing entire stations. They've got rid of shelving units, so there's more floor space. And a few weeks ago, I went into the local supermarket to buy some dark chocolate, and there was very little dark chocolate on the shelf. So I asked the teller, I said, do you not have any more? And he said that they keep it in the back because the amount of thefts, people coming in and just stealing the chocolate, just shuffling it into a plastic bag and running out. Now we're talking about chocolate that's costing maybe $4 or $5 a bar, and people are
Wow.
stealing that. And then there's in reports I've seen of cheese, just regular cheese with security tags on it. So these are not high-end goods like a really expensive steak, but cheese.
Mhm.
Um,
Are there
so that
also are there also tags on meat or going on the more expensive stuff?
I haven't noticed that. I've noticed the prices going up.
Hmm.
And one of the things I have to credit you for is because when I discovered you over a year ago, because you were covering how the money printing was leading to disruptions in the commodity supply chain. And you were doing that months and months and months ago. And that woke me up to how that was going to affect the retail market a few months down the line.
Hmm.
And so I've been warning friends and family since I started watching your videos over a year ago that, hey, you better start stocking up because things are going to run out. Move before the crowd rushes in. Better to be early than to be late. So I've noticed that. Then there's reports about the police not having the resources to investigate crime because there's so much crime going on, but also there's an excess of deaths happening, and the mainstream media can't for the life of them understand why. Why are all these people suffering from sudden adult death syndrome? Why are children getting dementia? Why is the ambulance service under more demand than has ever happened? So much so that the police are now responding to serious medical emergencies because the ambulance service can't deal with it because there's so many people having heart attacks all of a sudden. And I know this is going to be on YouTube, so we have to be careful about what it might point to.
Let's just say that we have no idea at all.
Yes, yes. Well, actually, on the mainstream media, they have no idea, or they're not saying, right? So that's tying into it. So then you've got less. I mean, I've noticed it at work where you have all these people who have taken protective measures as recommended by the medical agencies, but are sick and infirm because of they're suffering from COVID again and again and again, despite taking repeated medical interventions as recommended by the agencies, by government agencies. So that's having an impact on employment and on services being provided. And then you've got the suicidal, punch themselves in the face sanctions against Russia, which I could tell, you know, when the war started, I was saying having arguments online with friends and family and stuff, and saying, look, that Europe is punching itself in the face. Russia's going to win. Russia's going to win. And not necessarily because I want Russia to win or anything, but if I just look at it, right, they're self-sufficient in energy, self-sufficient in food. They'll just sell their gas to China and India, which is what they've been doing. And what's happened is that the market, the supply, Europe, including the UK, have reduced where they can get gas and energy from. And then that's had an impact on energy costs, which of course impacts everything, because it impacts transport, it impacts manufacturing, it in fact impacts the production of all the spin-offs from gas and oil, including fertilizers and the other sanctions that they've put in place in Russia. So we've got a lot of anger, growing anger about the cost of energy and the cost of living crisis. And what's missing in the mainstream media is connecting that to the lockdowns, because that also disrupted the supply chain. So on the one hand, you've got this increasing anger and increasing activity by the trade union movement, by the left, in the mainstream media, people getting incensed about it, campaigns to not pay their energy bills when the next price rise comes in, which I think is due in October. And then there are those that I suppose normally the Guardian readers, people that watch the BBC, and the middle classes, people of my demographic who I think aren't awake to what's going on. And they think, no, somehow, was it a friend of mine said to me last week, do you think Russia's winning? And I said, well, I don't know. I mean, in reality, I don't know. There's so much propaganda on both sides, right? Whether it's RT or BBC. But I said, listen, they have 20% of Ukraine's territory. I think they're doing pretty well from their point of view. But that's not at all portrayed in the mainstream media, how well Russia, it's all about how badly Russia is doing. And anytime it's going to fold, and the insane notion, by the way, this is a really long answer to your question, so feel free to interrupt me. The insane notion that Russia is bombing itself and its own troops on the nuclear power station that it is holding. It's like, what? It's like,
Yeah.
no, it makes no sense whatsoever.
So I had a related question on the UK. I saw this article, and this is the opposite direction that Israel's going in. Israel's going in the direction of a cashless society, and that's not going to last very long, because that'll only speed up the price increases, because it makes it so much easier to transfer these to transfer currency, and also it raises prices by subjecting everything to taxes that are going under the table with cash. So it creates very, very quick price increases. But I read that in the UK, there's a record withdrawals of physical cash. Do you get the sense that in the UK, the government's going to try to clamp down on that? And what is going on with your government? Is there a new prime minister? Are there new elections coming? I hear Boris Johnson is out now. There's no government here in Israel either, and it seems that there's no government there. I mean, that's a good thing. But what's going on with cash, and what's going on with Parliament?
Okay, so there's the same drives, the same direction of travel towards getting rid of cash, and I think getting onto what they say is a highly efficient digital ID, central bank digital currency. Yeah, you know, because then we can access all sorts of services, and there'll be less fraud and corruption. So there's that drive, and one measure of it is they're getting rid of ATMs. There also, many shops are cashless, like where I normally get my decaf mocha from, because I don't drink caffeinated, because then I wouldn't sleep till next week, right? They won't take cash. It's card contact only. The limit on contactless transactions has gone up. You know, it was like maybe £30 a year ago. Now it's £100 contactless. So getting us used to that. Also, bank branches closing down. So there's that direction. The government is still paying for and funding the development of CBDCs and digital IDs and vaccine passes. So that's all going on. They have, there is more and more physical cash being taken out, the amount that's being used, or the places where it can be used, is going down. I didn't quite understand your video about how a cashless system, especially, and a central bank digital currency would lead to inflation. I didn't understand that, right? I couldn't work that out, right? So that might be something that I'd like you to explain, because if we're in it's all centrally controlled, with prices controlled by the government, then how can you have inflation unless it's through a black market, which would then bring in a role for physical transfer of silver, possibly gold, and the use of privacy-focused cryptocurrencies in an informal market?
I can answer that. I can answer that this way: that government can never control prices. The CBDC is not going to control prices. That's impossible, because prices have to go by supply and demand. They can dictate prices, but if the price is too low, it's just going to cause shortages, and people aren't going to be able to buy anything on the white market, or let's say the legal market, and it'll all go into the black market if you want any good or service. So there's no way for them to control prices. And what's really the qualitative difference between a CBDC of a pound or a shekel or a dollar, and a digit that you see in your bank account when you log into your checking account? They're all just ones and zeros. It's the same thing. It's just that a blockchain is more traceable by the government. They can see more of it all in the blockchain itself. So there's no qualitative difference monetarily between a CBDC and the current digital currency that we use. So all that will be the difference is they'll be able to track all of it and therefore tax all of it. And that means functionally steal more money and leave less resources for us. So we'd be acquiring fewer resources with more units of currency, whether they be CBDC. And either people are going to have to go to the black market to survive, or they're going to starve. That's how it's going to be. And eventually, when they steal enough, there'll be a revolt, and that would be the collapse of the system, which is what has to happen, because we both see the direction we're going in. There's no stopping it. It's not like somebody wise in the government's going to say, in any government, okay, I think we've digitized enough. Now let's just stop here, and we're in the utopia that we've already been planning, and that's it, and everything is great. That's not happening. We're just going to keep going until the whole thing falls apart. That's obvious.
Yes. Well, okay, thank you for that, Rafi. That's clarified it. And I want to go on to answer your question about the political scene in the UK. I did a video which I posted recently. I don't know if you've watched it, which is about how corrupt money begets corrupt politicians. So that we have Lynn Truss and Rishi Sunak, who probably have half a brain cell between them. No political acumen, really. And then on the opposite side of the bench, we have the opposition, Keir Starmer. No political acumen. The political titans like Thatcher and Reagan and JFK, and even Jeremy Corbyn and Donald Trump to a certain extent, who were independent, sovereigntists, and could hold their own and had appeal because of their political views, because of their own merit. We don't have them. What we have are cut out copies, all putting in pretty much the same policies, whether it's Trudeau in Canada, in the People's Republic of North Canada, or whether it's Bennett in Israel, right? Or Macron in France, or is it Habeck, who's really the real ruler in Germany, right? It's all the same policies, all the same cut out policies, right?
Yeah, and these people are empty. There's no. They're like empty shells of politicians that used to have heart. And actually, I wanted to say this for a second. I was listening to Tom Woods. Do you know who he is?
No, I don't listen to him.
So he has a podcast, Tom Woods. He comes from the Ron Paul Mises Institute crowd of libertarians. And I was listening to his class on the Bolshevik Revolution, right? And he said something that scared me. But now that I realize it, it's very accurate, and it's true. That the Bolsheviks, when they took over Russia, what made the Bolsheviks so ruthless and vicious was the very fact that they were such a small faction that they had no choice but to bring down the hammer and scare people and kill them in order to keep them in line because they were so unpopular. It's not like they were this popular uprising. They were nobodies. And then I look at the situation in Israel. You have this guy Bennett who had 6 of 120 seats in the Knesset, and he ended up prime minister. Or you have all these unpopular people that nobody liked. Nobody likes Trudeau. Nobody likes Keir Starmer or whoever's in charge of the UK. I don't even know who it is.
Or Biden.
Nobody likes any of these people. They have no popular support. And then but that makes us think positively, okay, so we'll get rid of them and we'll have someone who's popular, but maybe not. Maybe the dull bureaucrats that have no soul and are the ones that are ruling us are because of and making our lives miserable, or because of the very fact that they're unpopular. They're going to be ruthless, but ruthless in like this dull, monotonized, machinist way, rather than in a Hitlerian or Stalinist personality cult way.
Yeah,
I don't know what's worse.
Yeah. But I think the authoritarianism is definitely there, right? Because if I mean, the British government has just very recently made it okay for insects to be part of the human food chain, so that they can put insect-based products into our food chain. If they were to run on a platform of, would you like, vote for us and then you get to eat bugs? Nobody vote for them. No, I'm not eating bugs. I'm not doing it, right? So I completely get your point. Or, some of the practices, some of the policies that this Conservative government are put into place, they're not Tory. They're not traditional Conservative policies about promoting small business, religion, preserving English culture or British culture and way of life, preserving the family, freedom of choice. I just give you a few examples. And there's a libertarian element to the British Conservative Party, which is completely gone. They're putting in place laws that will allow the police to arrest people on their way to a demonstration. So not even at the demonstration, right? And I think I've told you, my children have never been to school, home educated. So there's a bill going through Parliament which would mean that unless I register my children, let the local authority know that they're not attending school, then I will be issued with a school attendance order. I've got 15 days to appeal. If I lose the appeal or I don't reply or whatever, my children, then I get fined. If I refuse to pay the fine, I go to prison for up to a year. When I do my sentence, I do the year in prison. I come back out, I can be fined and sent to prison again for the same offense. It would also allow the government to ban and outlaw religious schooling. So if I want my kids to go to a Christian school or a Muslim school or a Jewish school or a Hindu school,
that's straight up communism. That's straight up.
It is. It's Stalinism. Stalinism. Yeah. It completely is that sort of centralized control. It makes it illegal for people to bring onto a school campus any sorts of non-approved literature. So, for example, I couldn't bring a book onto campus that said that actually what the British call the First Indian War of Mutiny, the Indians call the First Indian War of Independence.
Yeah.
Or if they want to promote, woke culture and encourage children to change their gender identity at the tender age of 7, and I brought something on that preserved the family, then I could be fined or imprisoned.
This is actually these are laws that are being passed or bills that are being what
proposed.
Is going?
It's going through Parliament. This is not what the Conservative Party campaigned on. These are not Conservative policies. Even the thing about, there was something a few months ago, it's now not going to happen. There's a small village outside the city of York. York is a beautiful, beautiful city, an old capital of England. The city is inside an old castle, and it's in the northern English countryside. Beautiful, beautiful place. There's a little village outside of York called Linton on Ouse. And I think there are 700 people that live in this village, which probably goes back to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years, old English settlement. This Tory government, this supposedly right-wing Conservative government, were proposing housing 1,500 single men from Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan in that village. Now, I'm Muslim, right? But I'm like, what the hell are they doing? What the hell are they doing? 1,500 Muslim men in this English village outnumbering the locals 2-1.
Like they're trying to destroy the country. That's
That's
what
what they're
has
doing.
to
It's going
be
to set people against
understood.
each other. It's going to set people against each other.
This whole, you know, we're trying to pick the politicians that are on our side. This is not the game anymore. It's not like we have to vote a certain way and we'll stop the tragedy or the atrocity of what's going on. This is governments against people. That in every country, that's what has to be understood. And now I wanted to make like a little bit of a separate point here, and that in getting out of this, and we will get out of it. They're not going to destroy all of society. They will collapse. But there's going to be a regression. And when we fall back, we're going to have to fall back onto something. And I don't know much about Islam, but and maybe you can answer this in parallel to Islam. But for example, in Judaism, we pray for the rebuilding of the temple in Jerusalem. Right, it was destroyed twice. Solomon's temple was destroyed in 586 BCE, and then the second temple was destroyed in 70 of the Common Era. And we've been praying for the rebuilding the whole time. And you know, a lot of people wonder, like, why do we want sacrifices of animals in the temple again? The whole thing seems antiquarian and outdated. You don't need to kill animals to God anymore. It seems crazy. But now we see what's happening with trying to outlaw meat and have people eat bugs. And in order to fight this, we need some kind of older system of values to fall back on in order to get rid of this insanity. And now it's looking, now that we're in a world where, you know, they're trying to outlaw meat and trying to get us out of it. I just saw that in Austria, they're putting meat on a secondary menu in their Burger Kings, and they'll only give you a meat burger if you specifically ask for meat, and all the other burgers will be fake meat. Unless we have a system of values that eating meat is a part of, they're going to take that away from us too. So does Islam have a religious basis for eating meat? And I'm not saying people have to eat meat, but I'm saying it has to be part of a system of values where humanity is put above animals, or else we're going to be on the level of animals, and that's what we'll be treated like.
Yeah. No, just on that. So meat eating is really big in Islam. You know, I'm from Pakistan, so definitely very, very big in Islam, right? And my understanding is that, you know, we don't, in eating insects is not halal. I don't think it's kosher, but you'd know better than I, right?
There's one kosher insect in Judaism. The grasshoppers and those types of bugs are kosher according to the Torah, but very few Jews actually eat them. But we could theoretically, but other bugs, no.
Yeah. It's and certainly not mass produced, you know, fed on God knows what insects, right? So so there's and you know, the Eid al-Adha is the biggest festival in the Muslim calendar, and that's to commemorate when Abraham sacrificed a goat instead of his son. So yes, we have that, and then what happens at Eid al-Adha is people go and buy goats and halal slaughter, and then you give away some to the poor people.
So eating the goat is part of fulfilling of that ceremony.
Yeah,
like you have to eat. Okay, so that's
no,
good. That's encouraging.
What I'm going to warn you about, Rafi, is I'm very liberal Muslim. My mum was Sunni, my father was Shia. He's very orthodox, and we never quite resolved in our household which way to go. And then I managed to escape formal Muslim instruction, right, that way. Now, but what my father always said to me is, look, in Islam, you can eat animals, you just have to treat them right. And then you have to honor them. And of course, halal slaughter includes prayer, because God gave us these animals for us. We treat them right, and they're for us. Now, personally, I'm keto. I'm high fat, low carb. And I subsist mostly on a diet of meat, eggs, and fruit.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, there you go, right? The best people into gold, silver, crypto, and keto fruito, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a big deal. And then what's happening in the UK with regards to that, and is that the government is giving money to farmers to stop farming. They're doing that in Northern Ireland. You know, we'll give you some money to stop farming. in Northern Ireland, they're promoting the culling of cows and sheep. Then I'm sure you know what's happening in the Netherlands and Spain and Canada, where they're out to stop farmers from farming in order to control the food supply and thus control us. However, I think at that point is where people start resisting. It's like, because the choice is death by protest or death by starvation. Well, I'll go by protest because at least I've got a chance of preserving my life here.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we're headed. So I wanted to redirect a little bit, but into the crypto discussion now, because I have slightly rethought my thinking on rethinking. I've slightly rethought the issue. Somebody asked me a question. I was meeting a guy in Jerusalem last week, and he asked me, if you're a Canadian, right, and your bank account has been shut down by Trudeau for donating $5 to the truckers or whatever it is that you did, and you have no way of buying goods and services, like what are you going to do? I mean, and as much as I want to say, give a silver coin to some to a grocer, that's not going to work, at least not yet, because the fiat currencies, the pound and the Canadian dollar, they're still functional. So you would need some kind of network to transfer value, and right now Bitcoin does that because Bitcoin is still a dollar substitute. So I would say right now Bitcoin has more utility than a silver coin, because the chance that somebody will accept Bitcoin and you can buy goods and services with that is probably higher than accepting a silver or a gold coin for what you need to survive. So the network itself has value because Bitcoin still transfers dollar value or fiat currency value, but gold and silver are still the ultimate money. They're not usable yet because the substitutes are still functional. So that's my rethinking on it. So really, the most valuable form of money, I think, in a digital world would be a gold or silver-backed cryptocurrency, where transferring the value of the gold or silver would be very easy to do and also out of the government's view. That's what you would need.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Rafi. And I agree with you in part, right? So I'll say the part that I agree with you, which is you've long maintained that gold is the ultimate form of money, and I now get it. I completely get it. And then you said earlier that perhaps silver is, right, but gold and silver have both, is what I say, right?
Yeah.
Well, the silver I think is much prettier. I prefer how that looks, but that's just this aesthetic appeal. And by the way, if you're in the UK, or even if you're not, you can get a silver Britannia. Is so beautiful. I think it's the most beautiful silver coin certainly that I've ever seen. And a gold Britannia is also pretty beautiful, but silver Britannia is something else. So I recommend you get one of those at least. Then in the situation that you presented, yes, Bitcoin has use, but in an increasing authoritarian world, I think the cryptocurrencies that would really shine are the privacy cryptos, Monero, and in particular Pirate Chain. Now, I have to say that I'm part of the Pirate Chain crew. So yes, I have a bias there, but from looking at it in terms of the fundamentals of Pirate Chain versus Monero, Pirate Chain is way more private and way more secure, because what's happening is you're having more and more regulation from the government about cryptocurrency transactions. And with Bitcoin, every single transaction is transparent and visible. And then I don't know if you know what's happened with Tornado Cash recently and the arrest of the developer who set up this open source code. And what Tornado Cash is, if you could send me some Ethereum, some ETH from your wallet through Tornado Cash, which mixes it all up, and then to me, and then nobody would know that it came from you. They'd see that it went from you to Tornado Cash, and they'd see that Tornado Cash went from that ETH went from Tornado Cash to my wallet, but they wouldn't connect you and I.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's happening is that exchanges and services where ETH has gone to certain wallets, say to your wallet, and then you've seen people can see transactions going from your wallet to Tornado Cash. Exchanges and services saying, okay, we're not going to send any ETH to your wallet, Rafi, because you've used Tornado Cash. So that's the risk with transparency currencies like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, but not so with Tornado, not so with Pirate Chain or Monero. Because with both of those, nobody can look inside your wallet and nobody can tell where and when you sent the money and who to. It is like you and I meeting up in a darkened room and in a private room and doing a cash transaction. Nobody will know.
Yeah. So this is very encouraging. And the way that I see these networks is, like picture very simply a network of a plumbing network that transfers water, like the water supply in a neighborhood or a city, right? There's a network of pipes underground that brings water into everyone's apartment, everyone's house, and they don't have to go to the river and wash their clothes. So the value of the network of pipes underground, what is the value of that? It's because it brings water to everyone's house, right? If there was no water, what's the point of a system of pipes underground if it can't bring you anything? So that's the question I always ask myself with these networks, and the privacy and the tornado and the pirate, and just an efficient, good way to block government from seeing all this stuff. That's a valuable network. The question is, what's inside of it? What is it transporting? So my answer to that is, in the end, it has to be gold or silver. And right now, all of these cryptocurrencies, since they are transferring the value of the fiat, which is based on gold, they are, in a very high derivative sense, still transferring the value of gold and silver. That's what's still in their networks, and that's ultimately what gives those networks value, because they're transferring value. But when the fiat currency collapses, then the question is, what's going to fill these networks? What are you transferring? Are you transferring a Monero or a Pirate or whatever crypto coin it is? Could it go back to gold? Might it not? And I don't have a definitive answer to these questions. I know theoretically and in my gut that in a digital world where, an EMP doesn't bust out the internet or something, that the best form of money would be a gold or silver backed crypto chain, private, that is outside of the vision of government, that is very easily redeemable for physical on demand at any time. That would be the ideal form of money in today's world. And I hope we get there.
There's a problem with that, which is the problem of counterparty risk. It's the same as having a problem with any fiat currency that's backed by gold. Why France challenged the US because they were printing all these dollars to kill people in Vietnam. And France said, you don't have the gold to back these dollars. Now, with cryptocurrencies, you can't print more cryptocurrencies. You can't change the code of Pirate Chain in order to print more Pirate Chain. You'd end up creating another coin, and then it's up to the market whether they use that one or not. So, and then where is the gold stored? Because you'd essentially have to have some sort of linkage, some sort of certificate system. And
yes,
then there's counterparty risk. However, the thing about gold, silver, Pirate Chain, Bitcoin is they have value in themselves. See,
that's where we disagree.
That's where we disagree, right? But just stay with me here. Right? They have value in themselves, in as much as that they have utility, and the market recognizes that they have value. Because you can't, if I send you a Pirate Chain, one coin, and the ticker symbol is ARRR. If I send you one R, that one R has all the qualities of money. Like it's fungible, it's divisible, it's portable, it's durable, and there's agreement that we can use it to transfer value. Same if I give you a silver coin or a gold coin or a Bitcoin, it has all those properties. Now, it might be in the market that there's okay, just like there's foreign exchange markets that set the price of Bitcoin and set the price of gold against the dollar or whatever, right? That ultimately Pirate Chain and Monero are measured against gold or even measured against Bitcoin. But when I send you that 1R, you can't reproduce that 1R. You can't make another one. You can't copy it. You can't print it out. It is just that 1R. And it does have a history on the blockchain but nobody can see that.
Yeah, I understand. I understand the practicalities of blockchain. I just don't. I don't. Let me put it this way. And I said this on a previous interview. I was on Liberty and Finance the other day. I think it'll go up today or tomorrow. That the whole idea, like when you're on the top of a pyramid, right, of a monetary pyramid, and you're existing on the very top level of it, of all these derivatives, you don't necessarily see what's underneath you. You don't know what you're doing when you're transferring, when you take a dollar bill or a pound to buy a good or service. If an alien were to look at that, like, why is this guy transferring this paper and getting a real thing that he can use? Like, what is going on here? How did that happen? It seems ridiculous, right? But if we look at it from a religious sense, how did it happen? How did it occur that people can just bow down to a statue and say that it's God? Okay, how did that happen? That's equally crazy, because a man makes a statue out of stone and he says, okay, this is God, I'm going to bow down to it. That is ridiculous. Nobody would have just done that. It had to come from somewhere. It has to be a derivative of something. And the answer that Maimonides gives is that idolatry came originally from God. People believed in a creator, right? And then somebody said, well, the creator's helper is the stars. Like, these stars are very powerful. And you had astrology, people believing in the power of the stars. And then so the stars were a derivative of the divinity of the one God. And then somebody came and said, look, I had a dream. The star talked to me in my dream and said that I have to make a form of the star, a statue representing the star, and put it in this temple. And then if we bow down to that form, the star is going to help us and tell God what we want. And then in that way, we'll get what we want, and our crops will grow, whatever it is. And then a kid goes into the temple, sees all the adults bowing down to the statue, and says, oh, that must be God. But he doesn't know, he doesn't understand where the pyramid of divinity came from, the base of it. He just thinks that the statue is God. So when somebody but same in the monetary sense, when somebody sees people exchanging a digit or a blockchain or a paper dollar or whatever it is for another good, it doesn't make any sense, but he does it because other people are doing it. But where did it come from? It came from somebody who gave a jeweler a hunk of gold, and the jeweler gave him something because the jeweler can use the thing to make a necklace, and it's very beautiful, and he can sell it to somebody who wants the necklace, and he can give him food in exchange. That's where it came from, and it's still there. That's the idol that the guy made and put in a temple for people to bow down to and sacrifice to or whatever. It's not God, but it comes from there in a series of derivatives originally, but everybody lost that, and they lose their connection to the one God, which is why the Bible tells us, don't do that. Don't make derivative levels of God, because you'll lose sight of what you're doing and you'll just be crazy, which is the same thing that we're doing in the monetary sense. We're making all these derivatives of gold and silver, of many, many different layers of debt on debt, debt on debt on debt, etc. And it's all going to fall down.
Right. Okay. I got a counter to that, right?
Okay.
Now, I'm on thin ice here. One, because I think you know a whole lot more about how the monetary system works, and I'm learning from you and others that I follow and stuff, right? Plus, also, you're way more informed, I think, in terms of religion, and certainly Judaism and Christianity, because I know the service that you provide is shaped by that as well.
I don't know much about Christianity. I know about Judaism, and Christianity is sort of Christianity itself is a derivative of Judaism, and Islam is also a derivative of Christianity. So historically speaking, I mean.
Yes. Okay. Right. Now, animist traditions, which predated the monotheist traditions. Mm-hmm. So the tree and the wind aren't derivatives of God. They are God. They are many, many gods. Mm-hmm. So in animist traditions, they would have direct relationship with the spirit of the tree and the spirit of the wind and the spirit of the sun, all of that, right? There's no like, okay, we got a statue to represent the spirit, the sun god. No, we just have the sun god. So you have many, many different forms. And it might be when we have the monetary collapse of the current fiat system, we then have many different forms of real, tangible things like gold and silver, because gold isn't a substitute for anything else. Gold is gold.
Right.
Rafi, I'll take your gold. Don't feel shy about sending me gold, right? Don't think I'll refuse. I won't be offended, right? Yeah, I'll take the gold.
I'll send you some
And
silver. Gold, I'm not going to
yeah,
send you.
fine, fine. Okay, well, okay. Well, gold would be cheaper in terms of postage costs. uh, um, so gold or silver, no problem. They're the real thing. In a digital world, Pirate Chain is a real digital thing. Okay, you can't hold it, but it has utility, just like the code under, you and I are recording this on Zoom, just like the code that determines Zoom or determines whichever browser we're using, whether it's Decenter or Firefox or Brave or whatever, right? That's a real digital thing that has utility in and of itself.
Okay, I can't go that far, and I don't agree with that statement. But again, this is where we diverge. All right,
Sure.
let's see.
Yeah, but do you know something? You send me some silver, I send you some Pirate Chain. We'll both be happy.
Yeah. I wanted to close off this discussion with Rich just a minute or two about the Fed going bankrupt, and the whole idea of that seems ridiculous, but it isn't. Because what does the Fed own, right? It owns bonds. It owns treasuries mostly and mortgage-backed securities. And now we say that the dollar is unbacked. However, the dollar is not unbacked. The dollar is backed by the assets on the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, because the Fed is the issue of the dollar. On the other side of the dollar is the Fed's balance sheet. So that's what backs it. The question is, do the assets on that balance sheet have any value? Now, if they don't have any value, then the dollar is backed by assets that are worth nothing, which is essentially backed by nothing. Then you can say the dollar is backed by nothing. So when the Fed raises interest rates, the value of the bonds on its balance sheet will fall, and the amount of money that it has to pay banks on interest will rise. So meaning its assets will fall and its payments will rise, and meaning it'll start to go bankrupt. So it mathematically, functionally, financially, the dollar will lose value when the Fed goes bankrupt. And when the Fed goes bankrupt, the dollar will be worthless. This is the balance sheet equivalent of what hyperinflation is and how it works.
Okay. Now I have and I'll just do this in a nutshell and I invite you to check it out if you haven't, right? Tom Luongo, and I've had him on my channel pretty regularly, and once a month I do a video with him. But his argument is that the Fed is at war with the WEF, because the Federal Reserve is not going to let go of its business model, of its banking business model. So they're raising interest rates, even though it will crash the economy. And they're raising interest rates in order to bankrupt the European Union and the ECB and crash the euro. And the dollar is rising because capital is fleeing into the US, where it's treated better because interest rates are better. And then you're going to have more and more internal investment within the US. So the US will recover. It'll take a while. And then at some point, I don't fully understand it, but at some point the dollar will crash sometime after that, because there'll be so many dollars coming in, perhaps. So we shall see. These are interesting times indeed, Rafi.
Yeah, look, there's so many different angles that you could look at this from. And we don't know what's the domino that's going to fall first, but when they do fall, they're all going to fall together, and they're going to fall hard. They're going to fall fast. And with God's help, it'll bring us liberty, and it's not going to be easy. It's going to be rough. And the best you can do is prepare as much as you can, mentally, physically, spiritually, and stick together, and God be with us all.
Yes, and agree to disagree respectfully.
Yeah.
As well. Rafi, thank you so much. Please subscribe. All the links in the description below. And between now and when I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with gold and silver and any other profits. This is Crypto Rich and Crypto Rafi signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.